To this, the regularly scheduled Shelburne Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, April 28th, 2020, which I now call to order and has been our habit with virtual meetings. We'll review the expectations of participation. For those of you who are participating, as well as the listening audience, once again, we welcome you and thank you for your interest and effort to participate. The major observation that we will all be working under is to identify ourselves at each point of remark or comment or response. This has as much to do with the fact that the listening audience otherwise does not know who you are. And while there is an audio record of the meeting, there is no video record. So I would ask everybody prior to, as a preface to your remarks, just simply say who you are. In the case of our board, I'm suggesting that we make a habit of beginning with Mike, going through Mary, myself, Jamie, and Kate, in that order, routinely on motions and other housekeeping, so that there's an expectation of when any of us are up for a vote and identification. That all being said, is there any discussion, questions before we go to item number 2? Will everyone who is presently participating at this point identify themselves, beginning with the board?
Mike Ashew. Jerry, I did actually have a question. I don't know if we need to discuss it, but what is the official status of the chat?
Sure.
We could use the chat. I'm not sure how it's been used with other boards yet, but we can enable it if we think that would be helpful. Others have cautioned against it due to, I don't know if everybody can see questions being asked, although I could certainly repeat them and put them out there for conversation. So up to you. We can enable that if we would like.
Do members of the board have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I would give it a shot. I think if you serve it up to Lee and he can moderate the questions, just as long as they don't become off the wall, fine with it.
Mary, what's your view?
My view is that I don't have a particular problem. I have been on Zoom chats where the chat function is pretty distracting if a lot of questions start coming in. But those were continuing legal education where a lot of people were trying to get free advice. So probably not the same in this context, but I would just say that if a lot of chats start coming in, it would be, someone's got to try to follow that. So.
Is Kate, are you aboard yet?
I seem to have a bad connection. I'm not even sure what you guys are talking about. I keep cutting out. So I'm trying to get that sorted.
Vice President Pence
Mike is in.
often tested for coronavirus, and since he does not.
Mike has introduced the idea of employing the chat function, Kate, and we're going around amongst ourselves to see what our view of that is.
I'm not a member. This is Jessica Brumstead, but I can just give you a little information because I live on Zoom these days. And we don't use the chat function because it is very confusing and a lot of people, then you have to write up your question, all that. But what we do use is the raise your hand function, which is in the participant section. And then if you see a hand, the person who's managing the meeting can say, we have a question, and then you can voice your question. It just helps when you're using phone. You don't really, and there's some star something that allows the people on the phone to use the raise hand. I mean, it's just something to look into, but that seems to work well for we do a Zoom with 150 members, so you can imagine that it's pretty confusing.
Thanks, Jessica. Well, it seems to be the will of the board to employ chat. Lee, is there some sort of technological requirement that you've got to meet now?
I just pushed the button and it's enabled.
So we're now chatting?
Correct.
Or
We have chat enabled.
okay. Meantime, is there any other? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I would just ask that everybody to be sort of judicious in the use of it, but let's see how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank
For
you.
those others who are participating this evening, will you take the opportunity at this time to let us know who you are? Beginning with Lee.
Lee Crone, Town Manager.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tessa. I'm the TA for the UVM 206 class that will be presenting in a little bit. And I just tuned in early, I don't know, to get context and be here and ready for it. But thank you for having us.
Thank you. Is Gail there?
Yeah, Gail Henderson King, Chair of the Tree Advisory Committee, and we are here tonight with several students from UVM who have been working on an Emerald Ash Borer management plan. We're going to give a presentation later.
And at that point, Gail, would you introduce them by name so we know who they are?
Yes, I'll do that.
I assume Peter's there?
Yep, Peter Frankenberg, Finance Director.
Is Kevin's there tonight again?
Do not believe so.
Tom Tompkins is there, I'm sure.
He is.
If not, Dom Porter. And Dom, would you introduce which number of committee members are there are participating tonight?
Well, let's see, Don Porter, I'm chairing our financial advisory group, and looking at my screen, let's see, I do not, look, let's see, Catherine Collette is with us. And I do not see anyone else, at least on my screen. Lee, you may have others on your larger screen.
I believe that's all.
Well, at the point, Don, that your item comes up, would you do the same that we asked Gail to introduce people as they arrive or as they take their place?
Yes, Jerry, I will.
Is Kate Wight, are you with us at this point?
I am. Hi, thank you for having me. I am the new business intro and very happy to be here. Thanks.
And is there anyone else representing themselves or the community is John Zacconi? John, are you with us?
He is not.
Jerry?
He's not. Yes.
It's Tracy Bowden. I am not on video and I'm also on mute, but my name happens to be Dirt Worship on your list. Not quite sure why, but that's my email name. So I am here to see the Emerald Ash Borer presentation.
Oh, good. I'm sure is Todd there as well, and David.
Dave Hall is here.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute. I'm gonna mute then. Thank you.
Gary, this is Ann Bentley. I'm actually just here as the public.
Oh, good evening, Ann. Nice to have you.
Good evening.
Is there anyone else that we would ask to identify themselves?
Jerry, this is Dean Pearson. I'm up for reappointment as the town's TAC rep.
Oh, good. Thanks, Dean. Is Chris there as well?
He is not.
Is there anyone else, Lee, that we should identify?
We have Paul Goodrich, Highway Superintendent, Scooter McMillan for the newspaper. Sometimes there's a phone number, don't know who they are, but I think that's everyone. Thanks.
Actually,
Thank
can I add, Bill Deming is on the
Yes.
line.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, Bill. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening.
And Is that our compliment tonight? We thank all of you for making the effort to participate. The next item is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Jamie.
Jamie moves.
I'll
Mary,
second.
Mike
Mike
second.
second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, by name, would each of you vote if you favor the agenda? Please vote aye in order.
Mike, aye.
Mary, aye.
Jerry, aye.
Jamie, aye.
Kate, I.
The vote's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is to approve meeting minutes of April 14, 2020. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Jamie.
Jamie moves.
Mary second.
Mary seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those approving, please signify by saying aye in our regular order.
Mike, aye.
Mary, aye.
Jerry, aye.
Jamie, aye.
Kate, are you voting? I assume that's a technical problem. The
Yes.
ayes have it.
Yes.
The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. The next item are public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment? Hearing none, we have no way to see hands, obviously. Anyone wishing to make a public comment? Hearing none, the next item are select board comments. We'll begin with Mike.
I have no real comments other than I miss everybody. I'm missing downtown Shelburne and getting out and about one day soon.
Thanks, Mike. Mary?
I would just add the same. I miss everyone, and it's a highlight of my week to sit down in front of my computer and say hi to everyone.
I have several comments. One, we would ordinarily at this point in the year be discussing a retreat, as you know. One of the great benefits of that event is in fact our interaction. It's something we're all missing greatly, being able to see each other and laugh and smile and whatnot. But the retreat also is going to be very difficult to schedule under the circumstances. My thought is that we definitely postpone it until sometime later in the summer, early in the fall, and perhaps at that time, subject to whatever suggestions all of you make, incorporate a focal a topic on which we could focus part of the retreat, much as we did with economic development last year, which I thought worked very well. So if you're all comfortable in simply rescheduling the retreat, postponing it until later in the summer, and secondly, if you would be willing to send along comments to Lee as to what you think might be useful foci for the meeting, I'd appreciate that. One of the major products of the retreat is an order of priority interests for the remainder of the year. Those are reflected in Lee's goals and objectives as well. There's a pandemic reset at the moment, and clearly your commentary to Lee would be even more valuable if you could make some suggestions as to your sense of what goals and objectives should be altered and in what way, and whether any goal or objective should be dropped or one added given the circumstances. I would also like to once again, as usual, but it's not usual, really, when you think about it, to thank every member of the town staff and all of the volunteers who are making possible a fairly routine, fairly normal town existence. We are very fortunate in our own situation, and to some degree that's a reflection of the observance of precautions that everybody has been making. Once again, we're very appreciative and owe a great debt of gratitude to the town staff, particularly those who have frontline responsibilities, for their efforts over the past 2 weeks since we last thanked them. Jamie, have you got any comments?
Nothing in addition. I echo everyone's comments, so thank you.
Kate? You have any comments, Kate, to make?
Looks
Not
like
hearing. Is there any discussion in the public? Hearing none. The next item is town manager report, which Lee will give us.
Thank you. Just a few quick items. Clearly, we are continuing our unusual staffing arrangement right now, alternating staffing in some of the key areas and certainly in town offices, following all the latest guidelines coming down from the state and other knowledgeable authorities. We've all been now required to go through a certain level of 19 training and certify that we have done that, and we will make sure that gets done very timely. As you probably know, many of the boards have started to meet again, so Zoom has been in, and we're running into a lot of conflicts in time and space, but they're all resolvable. And otherwise, I too am grateful. We're all doing our best to stay safe, stay healthy, so that we can continue serving the town and the community. The primary comments will be under the budget presentation below, so thank you.
Lee, would you update us or Mary on the CBA negotiations and what time schedule is being followed at the moment?
Sure, thank you.
Take that, Lee?
Sure. The union would very much like to resume those conversations. We have asked them to be patient with us. We feel that the nature of the conversation will be much better served in person than trying to do it electronically. So we're asking for their patience. There is no immediate timeline in place. If various restrictions are indeed lifted by May 15, I anticipate we will resume very shortly thereafter.
Okay. Are there any comments on the parts of board members to Lee's report or further questions? Is there any discussion or questions on the part of the public? Hearing none, the next item is to reappoint representatives to the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Board and committees. There are proposed reappointments to the following positions, all of which are 2-year terms. The Board of Directors, John Ciccone. The Transportation Advisory Committee, Dean Pierce and Lee as alternate. The Clean Water Advisory Committee, Chris Robinson and Dean as alternate. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I think we skipped an agenda item, but we may as well come back to my former colleague.
I called attention to Kate Wight and then blew right past it.
It's okay.
With Kate's understanding, can we finish 8 and then I'll return to 7?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a motion regarding the reappointment of representatives to the CCRPC?
I would move to reappoint John Ciccone to the Board of Directors for the CCRPC, along with Dean Pierce as to the Transportation Advisory Committee, with Lee Crone as alternate, and Chris Robinson to the Clean Water Advisory Committee with Dean Pierce as alternate.
Mary
Second.
moves.
Jamie
Jamie
second.
seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those approving, please signify by saying aye. By name.
Mike, aye.
Mary, aye.
Jerry, aye.
Jamie, aye.
Kate, aye.
That's a unanimous vote. We thank you very much. Now to return to the new business introduction. Kate, what our habit has been to ask you to give us an idea of your business line, your expectations in Shelburne, and would you be kind enough to do that for us tonight?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jamie, for inviting me, and thank you all for having me. My name is Katie Wight. I am a small business owner. I own a social media agency. We have an office on Falls Road. I've been in business for 3 years. So as a social media agency, our services include building content and social media strategies, content planning, content production, copywriting, community management, and social advertising. My career has been in social media. I worked for Burton Snowboards for 8 years, where I really kind of came up in this space. I spent a year at Tata Harper in Vermont. And over the course of my agency's lifetime, I've worked with businesses like Vermont Smoke and Cure, Rhino Foods. There's probably more that I'm forgetting right now, but that gives you an idea. So on my team, on our core team, there's 4 of us. There's myself. There's a woman named Caitlin Bergen. She lives in Shelburne, Vermont as well. Laura Cheney, who lives in Burlington, Vermont, and Rachel Brett, who lives in Middlebury. All of them have kind of spent their careers coming up around this part of Vermont as well. And we chose Shelburne because I live here, recently moved to Shelburne in October. Previous to that, had found an incredible, just perfect little office space that we love. That was a perfect location for us, especially in between our kind of Burlington core team members and Middlebury team members. Since COVID, since like the first couple of weeks in March, our business has been impacted, but I think it's also kind of led ways for more opportunities for us to be more community driven in our services and products. So what I mean by that is typically in the past, we have only worked with about 10 clients in a year. We're really selective and we only take on as many clients as we think, we can really impact and really have great quality of service. And there's quite a few kind of things that go into social media marketing. It's more than meets the eye. So it's a lot of bandwidth. But when things started to kind of get turned upside down, we had a couple of clients who, had been with us for a couple of years and they paused contracts, and we had a handful of contracts that were sort of with legal departments ready to be signed, and those got paused as well. So over the last 6 weeks, my team and I have hustled to get a digital course out on our area of expertise. We are currently keeping the price very, very low. And I'm happy to kind of send, Jamie, you can let me know what the best way to follow up with everybody is. I encourage everyone to check us out if this conversation kind of pertains to you, because I'm very, very proud. We're the real deal. One example I have is that our work with North Country Smokehouse, who are in neighboring New Hampshire, the only online marketing they do with us is with us. The only marketing they do is with us, is what I meant to say. And in March, their sales were up on their website 40% year over year.
Wow.
So we have a lot to offer, and we have 300 customers now inside our Strong Brand Social product, and we're getting a lot of great feedback. And I think, what I'm just really realizing is that as so many businesses now, and what's funny is that when I first left corporate, I thought it'd be so great to help small local businesses. But I found that they didn't really want my help yet. It didn't, marketers don't necessarily have the best rap. And I think small local businesses get a lot of unsolicited, attempts from marketing agencies. But in the last few weeks, we've really seen that this market of small local businesses is really opening up, and they need this information. And so Jamie had briefed me on like kind of coming with ideas of how the select board could help us. And I think maybe there's an opportunity for kind of mutual benefiting here. So as I mentioned, this product is doing well, but of course it's a very low price point. So it's going to take a lot of product sales to really float our business. But what I have been learning a lot about in the past, 6 weeks is how to simplify this information and how to teach it. And so I see kind of three different ways that I could solicit your help. So I'm breaking a cardinal rule because typically I say that you only come with one ask, or in marketing, you only focus on one ask. But one is obviously service referrals. If anybody on this call checks out our agency and sees that we would be a good fit and has, brands in mind that could use our help, of course, that would be great. Product referrals to anyone that you know that could use it. And then the third, I just think that there's a big opportunity potentially for some sort of virtual event collaboration that could really be anywhere from like hosting a simple seminar and speaking on this topic to actually kind of doing a workshop where business owners could come and build their whole social media strategy in a day. I think the details are really, could be anything that this group thinks would be most beneficial to the community. So I think that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
This is Jerry, Katie. Is the majority of your business regional or New England, or do you range further than that?
We do. We have served clients in Canada, South Carolina, California, even with our one-on-one service. Lately, we've had a lot of Vermont business, which has been great. I love that. And our customers are all over and for our product are all over the country.
That's really, really interesting, and I'm sure you could be a great resource for us later, Don, and I'm sure Roz are going to mark that themselves. Does anyone have a question for Katie?
No, Jerry, this is Ann Bentley. I have a comment. So, Kate, I don't know how we get in touch with you, but I'm a marketer at heart. I'm doing work with companies outside of Vermont, but we should connect. So just to figure some things out. So I don't know how we go about follow up here, but somebody can let me know.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Jamie said he can put us in touch.
I can put you in touch.
Nice to meet you, Ann. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy.
Katie, thank you for coming. It's great to see you. Katie and I were at Burton for 5+ years together, and she learned from some of the best marketers in the world, and she worked directly with Jake Burton Carpenter. So she's seen it all, and we're lucky to have her here in Shelburne.
No, that's great. I'm happy to connect with her. I mean, my daughter's moving from Seattle back to Burlington in the middle of this. And she works in the outdoor gear industry.
Oh, cool.
And I myself am doing some work outside of the state, and we should just connect.
Great. Thanks.
Welcome, Katie. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to just listen in on the rest. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Please do.
A lot of screen time, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next item is the Emerald Ash Borer Inventory, which is a presentation by our tree committee and a group of UVM students who are going to make a presentation on their project. Do you want to introduce Gail, everybody, and for us?
Sure. Hi, Gail Henderson King, and I am with the tree committee. And I believe David Hall, who is our tree warden, who's also on our tree committee, is on the call. I don't think we have any other tree committee members on tonight, but pardon?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, last fall, we reached, let me back up. UVM, through their Natural Resources Program, has I'm spacing on the word. A program where students can work on projects within the community. I'm spacing on the magical word, but anyway, we had, and they have a pitch at the beginning of the semester to try to get students interested in coming and doing projects. And so we pitched having a group of students help our committee with coming up with an Emerald Ash Borer management plan. And 3 lovely UVM students decided they would take on this task. And I will introduce them in just a minute, but one person who is their teaching assistant, Tessa, oh gosh, I'm spacing on her last name, McGann, thank you. She actually had attended our committee meetings for almost a year last year and got to know our committee very well. And lo and behold, when I went to do the pitch for this project, she was there and said, oh, you're definitely going to get students. And so she's been very helpful with helping the students work on this. So we have 3 students who have worked with us, and they had two pieces that they helped us with. The first one is that the tree committee has been working on trying to complete ash tree inventory for the entire town. And we had received a grant and have 2 iPads and set up and had been working on that, but just hadn't gotten to it all. So the students had said that they would help us with doing that piece, in addition to helping us put together this Emerald Ash Borer management plan. So we have 3 students, Megan Adulis. I apologize if I don't get your names correct. You can change.
It's okay. Hello.
Jake Shevling and Tyler Shontag. And I don't know, I saw Jake earlier and I believe Tyler's on as well. So the 3 of them have worked together with us. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, their semester kind of got chopped, and we haven't had as much interaction in person with them over the last few months, but we had met with them several times before they started on this project, and kind of had an outline for going forward. So tonight, as part of their class, they are going to give you a presentation, and us, a presentation on what they've put together. I have to apologize. I realized that I forwarded the draft report that we got yesterday to all of our committee members, but I forgot to pass it on to the select board. So apologies, but what we'll do is once it's finalized, we will send it to everybody. But I will turn it over to Megan, and I'll let you go ahead and give a presentation.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Gail.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah, I'm here. All right. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint, but thank you all for being here. We really enjoyed putting together this project, and it's been fun working with the tree committee. All right. Let's see. Shoot, I got to share my screen here. Oh, no. Why is it not working? Oh, wait. Hold on. I apologize. We usually use Microsoft Teams at school, so Zoom is a little new. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I was going to say that Lee has to give you permission to share your screen.
Okay, good to know.
I need to find where that hides in here. Let's see.
While Lee's finding that, I do want to just thank the 3 students who worked on this project. They've really been wonderful. They did do a fair amount of tree inventory for us. Unfortunately, we're having technical issues with our iPads uploading the information, but we do hope to have that figured out shortly with the state and be able to have that data. So they were very helpful with that work, as well as just meeting with us and helping us with everything.
Megan, you should be good to go.
All right, sounds good. Let's see this. Can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
No? Okay. share. Okay, what about now?
Coming.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna put it in present mode. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So yeah, we were the group for the course NR206, responsible for, like Gail said, the roadside ash inventory, as well as the management plan, which we were happy to create. You can go to that. Okay. So, as many of us know, the emerald ash borer is a highly invasive insect native to Eastern Asia that was believed to be brought over to the U.S. through wood packaging, because that is typically how it's moved, which I'll get into a little bit later. It was first detected in the U.S. in Michigan in 2002 and has since spread across the East Coast, as you can see in the chart to the right, all the way up, to Vermont and Georgia and all the way in between. It was first detected in Vermont, like it says here, in February of 2018. So it is here, it is present, and it is something worth talking about.
Tyler?
Mute. Sorry, it was on mute.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
This is Tyler Shontag. I'm going to talk to you a little bit first about the ecology and the life cycle of the emerald ash borer. So it begins in the spring. Females lay 60 to 90 eggs in the crevices of the ash tree, and that's from mid-June to mid-August. And then it takes about 2 weeks for the eggs to hatch, and that depends on the temperature. Colder temperature is going to take a little bit longer for the eggs to hatch. But once they hatch, they've entered the larval stage, and then they'll chew their way into the bark, and they'll rest right between the stem of the tree, like the woody part, and the bark. And that's where they're going to do the most damage, chewing away at the phloem of the tree, which transports nutrients up and down the tree. And they'll feed on the phloem for up to 300 days, and they'll overwinter under the bark. And then come springtime, sorry, look at my notes. So they'll pupate. They'll pupate in the spring, which means they'll sort of create like a hard case for themselves, and just metamorphose into adults. And then mid-May to mid-June, they'll start emerging as adults, and you'll start to notice those telltale D-shaped exit hole signs. And then once they're adults, they go up into the canopy and they feed on the leaves. And that doesn't do too much damage. The real damage is coming from the larvae. But then they'll start to mate about a week after emerging, and the males only live for about 2 weeks and females live for 3 weeks. So then the life cycle begins all over again. And a little bit about the spread. They can fly up to 20 kilometers, but rarely will they do that. They will usually exit the tree that they were born in and then just fly up to the canopy there. So it's mainly spread through human interaction, like transporting firewood or nursery stock. So like bringing one ash tree from one state to another. And the lack of natural predators also doesn't help that. So it pretty much is able to spread uncontrolled. Go to the next one. Why prevent the spread of EAB? There's lots of reasons. Start off with some ecological ones. Obviously, when you lose trees, you lose shade, you lose air filtration, carbon sequestration, erosion control, urban green space. You're also losing that urban forest diversity. And along with ecological concerns, there's also economic and human safety concerns. So when the trees go untreated or do anything with them for so long, they eventually die, and then they become a hazard of falling over and crushing a car or crushing a pedestrian. And once it gets to that point, it's really expensive to remove. Like it says here, it's depending on the size of the tree and the condition, anywhere from $155 to $3,500 a tree. And you can see on the picture how much damage the EAB does. On the left, you can see the trees completely foliated, and then on the right, completely defoliated because they're all dead trees. So here's slew of pictures. The top row, you'll see some identifying features of ash trees. First one is the typical opposite branching pattern you'll see on ash trees, and then next is the compound leaf that you'll want to look for. Next would be the diamond-shaped bark. You look for those diamond-shaped ridges in the bark, and then we have a bud, which sort of looks like a fuzzy Hershey kiss on top. And then in the bottom row, we just have some telltale signs. So I mentioned before the D-shaped exit holes you can see on the left-hand side of this bottom picture on the left corner. And then just a little inset of the adult beetle himself. And then in the middle, on the bottom row, we see these S-shaped galleries that the larvae create as they feed on the phloem. And that's really where most of the damage is coming from to these ash trees. And then this final picture is referred to as flecking or blonding. And it happens when a tree is infested. Woodpeckers notice that and they'll start chipping away at the bark. Oh, and another sign is, the defoliation that we saw in the last picture. So once the tree becomes infected, you'll start to notice that the upper branches are losing their leaves and the limbs may become dead.
So yeah, as Tyler mentioned, there is a lot that goes into the destruction of ash trees. So some prevention that we came up with. First and foremost, obviously this may seem obvious, maybe not, to stopping the planting of new ash trees. Yeah, seems pretty self-explanatory and it helps a lot. And then as for landowners, quarantining your firewood is, as I said before, how it was brought to the US in the first place through wood packaging, and how Tyler mentioned how it can be spread through multiple forms of wood, including wood chips and etc. So like this picture I have up here says, "Don't move firewood, it bugs me." Yeah, that's pretty much just, that's how EAB spreads. It is mentioned in the management plan that the EAB's natural spread is only around 1 to 2 miles from its initial nesting point. So obviously that goes to show that humans are a huge vector in the spread of this invasive insect. So I also have be proactive. It's easier to prevent a problem from happening than having to clean up its mess once it's exploded. I'm sure we are all familiar with that, both learning the hard way and the easy way. So yeah, that goes into, no planting new ash, being very proactive about detecting the signs of the emerald ash borer, and just being diligent about the wood that landowners do possess and what to do with that. And further, public outreach is going to be huge because someone can detect emerald ash borer and let someone know, and that chain of events is always very helpful and beneficial in most cases. So we propose to have educational flyers posted townwide in public spaces that would provide and promote knowledge on the emerald ash borer, some management strategies that we do flesh out in our plan. And as well as further links to, more information and contacts for whoever needs. And the tree committee also has these small little, this is an ash tree identifier cards that are adhered to the ash tree clusters once they are determined to be an ash tree cluster. So continuing the use of those will be greatly beneficial as the public responds to those very greatly.
All right, so I'm going to talk about our inventory now that we conducted.
And you are?
I'm Megan. I'm Megan. Hello. So we completed some different inventory for the ash for the plan, as we completed a couple more roads for the inventory where STC completed a bunch before us, but we were just trying to finish up the last parts of it. Unfortunately, due to coronavirus, we couldn't complete all of it because of social distancing and all that jazz. But more information on our inventory is included in the document that you guys will get. Some of you might have saw us in our fancy vests walking along the side of the road measuring ash. As you can see here, this is Jake and Tyler doing some inventory on the one-way portion of Webster. We also saw a police officer on the road and was asking us what we were doing, which was pretty cool one day. So yeah. All right, so this is a map that we're uploading all of our inventory data to look at where ash trees are in Shelburne on which roads, and this shows us the different health condition of each tree, as well as the diameter at breast height or the width of the tree. So this map is showing the 166 ash trees that are inventoried so far. As Gail said, we are having some technical difficulties of trying to upload the inventory portion that we did, and hopefully that'll be up soon so you guys can see that. The roads that we did in addition to what have already been done are Bay Road, Webster, Irish Hill, and Barstow roads. So on this map, the light green, it might be a little hard to see, is the healthy trees. So those are not priority removal. We want to keep those. The orange, you can see along Harbor Road up here, are the unhealthy or dead trees, which are priority removal trees because those are most susceptible to getting emerald ash borer. And then the light blue are unknown priority status that are found. So here are our inventory results. As you can see, there are 4 different health condition classes that we judged based on how the tree, if it had any dead limbs or if it was doing pretty healthy, that kind of thing. So as we could basically see that most of the trees that were larger actually were in very good condition, which is good. Where most of the ash that were present were smaller in DBH class. And then this is also in the management plan, sorry. Okay, so going on to different management strategies that the town of Shelburne could do to help save their ash trees. So the 3 different types on the left side here are from the Urban and Community Forestry website. And they have a really helpful resource. We include a lot of links from them in the management plan. So preemptive management is an option, and that is when ash are completely removed before EAB infestation because it costs less, as Tyler was saying before. And they're replaced with a variety of other species that won't be affected by emerald ash borer, such as elm or other species. So the initial cost of this is relatively high because you're, getting rid of all these ash and then planting new trees. But the annual cost of maintaining that is low. So you just have to, take care of the trees, and you don't have to worry about emerald ash borer at all. However, there are some cons and pros to this. So pros are that in maintaining urban diversity and preventing all EAB hazards, because when a tree gets emerald ash borer and it dies, it is a pretty big health hazard and it can fall over and hurt someone. Cons are that there are no public urban ash trees to remain, and when you get rid of all the ash, you're going to have a major canopy gap before the other trees are planted. So for selective management, this is where you select high value ash. So for example, some of those good big healthy trees that were in the inventory section, and you use insecticide or chemical treatment to monitor these trees. You treat them and then you monitor them over time and retreat them. All their ash are unmanaged, or they're managed under a forest management plan, which wouldn't apply to us because we're just talking about trees in the right of way. So we would, and also replace dead or dying ash with other species in the right of way. So this is kind of a combination of the 2, preemptive management and reactive management. The cost for this would be spread over an extended period because you would be doing both kinds. Pros is the best survival for ash and to keep mass trees, which are, they're basically providing seeds for the next generation. And it's also good for the public because they're not losing all their ash trees. This is most cost effective for taxpayers while maintaining an urban canopy because you are saving some of those trees and not cutting down all your trees. Then reactive management is managed the same as non-EAB affected trees. And then once EAB, so this basically you're doing nothing until EAB hits. And once it hits, you remove all the dead hazard trees as they become a hazard, which probably is not the safest thing to do and also costs a lot more money. So the initial cost would be low because you aren't doing anything, and the animal cost would be high because you're removing dead ash trees, which, as I said before, is a public safety hazard, and it's much more expensive to do than removing healthy ash before EAB. So for the town of Shelburne, we recommend that selective management would be the best option based on the different goals that STC has, because they want to save their ash, especially with saving survivor trees, using inoculation methods, and they also want to have the most cost-effective method. So now we're going to move on to treatment and removal costs. So there are basically, of selective management, there are basically two different types of ways to deal with EAB. First is chemical treatment or inoculation. An estimate we got was $12 a diameter breast height inch. And that would be reapplied every 2 to 3 years. There's also different options such as insecticide, which is a little bit more expensive. However, the cost of this can be lowered if a town staff member or someone else had got a pesticide applicator certification. I kind of looked into the cost on that. It's not that expensive. You have to get it recertified every 5 years, I believe. That would be a good option. We also included the link to do that in our management plan. So that was what we would do for the big trees that you guys want to save. They're for your survivor trees. And then this figure here on the right is an example of trunk injection, which is where you put some chemicals in the trunk to save the tree and kill that animal ash borer. It looks a little silly, but just letting the public know, hey, we're saving this tree. Then the other option that you would do for maybe the getting rid of dead trees or unhealthy trees would be tree removal, just basically going through and just cutting down trees. Some different estimates I found online were 1833 an inch of DBH or 155 to 3,500 a tree. Again, that depends on the size, the health condition, and various other factors. And then once you cut the tree, you would stump grind it, which is 650 an inch DBH or 125, 250 a tree. And after you do that, you would go and replace these ash with various other species I was talking about before, and that would be $100 to $600 a tree. A really good thing to use for this is using the Emerald Ash Borer calculator. Unfortunately, when I tried to use it, it crashed on me numerous times. So hopefully I will get more accurate estimate. But you guys do have all the information to put in there to come up with a cost estimate if for some reason it keeps not working for me. So that is an awesome tool to use. All right, then on to wood utilization. Oh, does someone have a question? Oh, okay. So there are different ways you can dispose of your infested EAB wood. Like Jake said in the beginning, it's best to not move your wood around and just keep it within where it was chopped down or where the infestation was. So EAB infested wood can be used for wood chips, firewood, which is awesome. It's a really easy way to use it. Mulch, timber, lumber, and you can also recycle this kind of wood. And for the town of Shelburne, the McNeil generating plant is where you want to dispose all of that wood that's could be infested. As well, STC plans to make felled ash resulting from EAB prevention techniques available to the residents of Shelburne as firewood to be burned in Shelburne. So yeah.
Hi guys.
Well, thanks.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about invasive species management. So when we take trees from the landscape, it opens up a lot of sunlight that wasn't there previously, and it allows that to reach the ground. And invasive species like buckthorn and honeysuckle sort of thrive in these conditions, these like newly disturbed sites with lots of sunlight and space to grow. So these are also invasives, and we also want to prevent the spread of these. So it's important that we think it's important that SCC work closely with the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources to just make sure they're following those invasive plant species protocols. And then LEAP is the acronym they've created. It's locate, identify, eradicate, and prevent, I believe. So yeah.
And then to cap off all of this information, what this management plan means for Shelburne, Vermont is a lot. Like this first bullet point says, a lot of the management related to the emerald ash borer comes onto the towns. It is the town's responsibility to take care of this, whereas resources and aids can be, applied for and used. Ultimately, the responsibility is on the town. So although our management plan is not the first in Vermont, there are ones in Williston as well as Charlotte. Our intention is for our management plan to aid the town of Shelburne and using the best methods that we discussed and that are fleshed out more in our management plan for moving forward with the emerald ash borer and all of the distress it plans to bring. And yeah, so like I say in the last point, we have a lot of resources and additional contacts and other things of that nature that are a great help to us too. So thank you for listening.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
This is Jerry. I had one question. Earlier in the presentation, you mentioned a zone of 1 to 2 miles around an infected tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, given the magnitude of investment, what is going to be the reliable return if Shelburne would do this simply on its own rather than interdependently with other communities? In other words, is that 1 to 2 miles so reliable that you could efficiently invest in resources and expect a pretty satisfactory return on them?
I'll answer that and I'll say yes, it is. Similar to how we are quarantining and slowing the spread of COVID-19, the same effect happens when firewood is quarantined and preventative measures are taken by the town alone to, bring down the overall cost of management if, the emerald ash borer were to continue to spread past that 1 to 2 miles and create new nesting sites and so forth. So yes, is the short answer.
And to add on to that, the other, like as Jake said, a lot of other towns have come up with their own management plans, so they are doing very similar things to what we described.
So
Oops, I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mary.
I'm wondering why the town wouldn't undertake to get someone certified to do the inoculations, since that piece falls within the selective management plan, which seems to me to be most reasonable, and it's what this wonderful group of UVM students is recommending. Why wouldn't we get somebody who's a town staff person certified to do that work on trees? And also, this might be unwise or impractical, have the town offer to inoculate private property owners' trees for a price that is very reasonable. I say that partly because last fall I spent a fortune, far more than $12 an inch, to have my trees inoculated. I paid about $400 a tree to have my trees inoculated. And if the town could do it for less, it could make some money, it could save more trees, and it could provide a service. I'm given to understand that ash trees like being near water, and we have a lot of them. I live down on Harbor Road. There's a whole lot on Harbor Road. And I'm thinking primarily of now Shelburne Farms and the museum. I don't know how many ash trees are on those properties, but because Shelburne Farms is on the water, I'm going to guess there are a lot of ash trees on that property. And Shelburne Farms is a nonprofit trying to raise money all the time for their capital infrastructure, which requires a lot of attention. So it just seems to me that there's a potential win-win here for tree inoculation. And I'm wondering if our students could comment on that.
So yeah, that's why I wanted to point out to you guys is it might be a good investment for the town to have someone be certified to do that. But yeah, so for the tree committee, at least for this inventory, we only looked at the ash trees in the right of way on public land. But I feel like maybe Gail or someone else might have a better answer to what you're asking. But I'm sure Tyler or Jake, do you want to say anything? Or Gail?
Yeah. I think it's a great suggestion.
Dave Hall here, Mary. The certification is one aspect of injecting. I think we also need to make a decision as a town or from the town leaders. Burlington has decided not to inject anything. They're replanting and removing slowly and periodically. They don't want to have anybody come down in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years and say that they've developed cancer because the trees in their neighborhood were inoculated. Rutland first came out with the idea that they were going to remove everything, and then they have 2 on staff arborists, and they evaluated and found that it was less expensive for them and made sense. Their staff became certified and have been inoculating a selection of trees. So 2 big cities have 2 different takes on it. I'm not sure past the certification what the insurance changes go when we start applying chemicals. I considered in my own business being certified as an applicator years ago and had a very short conversation with my insurance agent that said, if I went through the process and got certified, what would it do to my insurance? And the response was, well, I'm not exactly sure, but I know I would get a very nice commission off of that sale. So I chose not to go that way. So I think if we were to work with Shelburne Farms and Shelburne Museum and try and get a co-op price, that could be a way to go. And as the infestation proceeds through the town, the prices are, I know you paid a lot. There's different prices out there. And it's going to be a matter of shopping. My personal opinion is that we shouldn't be getting involved with competing with businesses as onto private land. We should focus on our private land and maybe do a co-op.
Thank you, David. Gail?
I just wanted to add one thing. We have talked about this a little bit at the tree committee level, and one of the issues with tree inoculation is it's not just this year and in 2 years, it's continuous for the life of that tree. And so one of the things that we haven't looked at yet, and we really appreciate what the students have put together, this will be very helpful to kind of start looking at this and making that assessment is it probably does not make sense to do a whole lot of ash trees with inoculation. It's probably select trees, but then, you know, does it make sense? That would then be an ongoing cost for the community, and how valuable is that tree? And well, we can have it all set up and continue to do it now, you know, 20, 30 years down the road, somebody comes along and there's nobody around that has been part of that process, could all of a sudden say, why are we doing this? And all of a sudden stop doing it. So there's a whole lot of issues with how that works and that ongoing maintenance and upkeep of that. So we're trying to look at that and really kind of make some kind of a judgment or an assessment of what makes sense to do if that's the route that we decide to go. But I do think that there is some advantages for some trees if we really want to keep them, if they're really, prized trees. And one thing we've also talked about is trying to work with some of our surrounding communities and see what they're doing. And maybe there's some efficiencies of scale of trying to work together on some of this. So.
Lee, do you have any comments?
No, I think we've covered the bases. I think Dave Hall raises a good question, a policy question, the potential of, what is it appropriate to essentially go into competition with private businesses when there are entities in the immediate area who do that kind of work? Might be one thing for us to do our own trees if we choose to, but whether we go into private property or, again, Dave suggested, try to get in on a larger scale cooperative sort of pricing and programmatic arrangement, I think would make a lot of sense.
Is anyone on the board does anyone wish to make a comment?
Hey, Jerry, it's Jamie. First of all, nice job, you guys, on this presentation. Really nice, deliverable, and well presented. So thank you.
Thank you.
Question is, what's the plan? And it may be a question for the tree committee. What's the plan for the balance of the inventory and the audit? It seemed pretty clear that on the west side, Harbor Road, for example, a lot of orange. Maybe towards the east, it looked a little bit more green, but there was a lot of blue. So I'm just wondering, how do we sort of look at this from a cost perspective and try to cost it out without really knowing which trees we might decide to inoculate?
Gail, do you want to take that or you want me to?
Or I can jump in. That's our plan. We had thought we were going to be able to get the inventory all done this spring with the help of the students, but obviously that unfortunately didn't happen. One of the things that we're finding, which I believe the students talked about, is that, or maybe it was Mary had brought it up, that the ash trees, native ash trees like to be near water. And so we have native ash trees that exist in Shelburne. Harbor Road is one example where they're just growing native natural out there. And there's other areas in town where that situation also exists. One of the things that has happened in other communities in Chittenden County specifically is that ash trees were planted as street trees in loads of subdivisions in the 80s and 90s. Shelburne has very little of that. What trees were planted in subdivisions are not in the right of way. They were planted on private property. So there are ash trees that were planted, but nothing to the extent of Williston and Essex, who have huge issues. So in that respect, we have less trees than some of these communities we're dealing with, but we still have, because we've got soils that these trees are happy growing on. And one of the things about ash trees, the emerald ash borer, is they really don't care whether it's a green ash, a white ash, or there's one other type of ash, I don't remember.
Black ash.
Thank you. They eat everything. So green ash was what's planted a lot. But so anyway, to make a long story short, to kind of address your question, we're hoping to be able to finish that inventory in the next this summer, fall. I mean, ideally we'd wanted to have it done sooner, but as soon as we can get back out there and work on it, it really needs to work 2 people at a time. So we'll have to figure out how that can work. And we've done a lot. We've got mostly major roads left to do, which is also somewhat problematic. So hopefully we'll get that done this year. And the goal is to be able to take this Emerald Ash Borer management plan and be able to work with some of the information and the cost estimating to start figuring out. One of the things in the ash tree inventory is we're documenting what the condition of those ash trees are. And if there's a tree that we feel that is one that is in really good condition that we want to save, we are making notes about that. So ideally we can go back and we can sort that data and help figure that out.
And Dave Hall here, if I can just jump in. I figured based on the mileage that we have about 68% of the roadways in Shelburne inventoried. So I think that once we get the remainder of our data uploaded and we can pull the figures and read it, we can do a pretty good extrapolation of what our total cost will be based on that in the near future before we get the entire thing finished.
This is Jerry. Gail, we'll certainly look forward to hearing from the committee at some point mid to late summer in anticipation of budget deliberations. And no doubt this information is going to be of great import for you. I thought that the presentation was extremely informative and well organized and to the point. And we would like to, all of us like to thank Tess, Megan, and her two colleagues, and as well share with you and David what has to be some real pleasure at the information and the insight that they've gathered. Does anyone else on the board? Does anyone else have a question?
I did.
Is there anyone in
this is Mike, Jerry. I wanted to ask, just to be clear, we're talking about a commitment to the lifetime of the tree of inoculation. So if we inoculate, we're essentially committing to a continued program of inoculation. It's not like the Emerald Ash Borer is going anywhere, right?
Correct.
That was my first question. My second question is just about the inventory itself. Is the inventory meant to count each ash tree in Shelburne, or to generate information so that we can make a good estimate about the actual number of trees?
Dave Hall here. This is a roadside ash tree inventory. So we've been dealing with the roads or trees in the right of way or adjoining the right of way. We've done some of the public spaces like the beach, Davis Park, the parade, to get it slightly out of that roadway definition. But we're not going into the natural areas. We're not going into private property. We're dealing with roadside issues and roadside sidewalk, highly trafficked park area issues.
And just to follow up on that, we have met with the Natural Resources Committee, and they were very interested in what we were doing. We will be sharing this report with them, but as Dave said, we aren't dealing with the natural areas. But the Natural Resources Committee does have inventories on some of those properties, and so hopefully this information will be helpful and useful for them as well.
Thank you. Is there any other?
This is Tessa, and I would like to speak a little bit to the topic of treating the trees for the rest of their lives, the lifetime commitment. In theory, yes, it is, but there are many projections that after this first wave of Emerald Ash Borer passes through, the population will drop once their food supply drops. And so you won't have to be inoculating the trees as frequently. The 2 to 3 year estimate is under like peak EAB infestation. And then second to that, there's a lot of work being done to introduce predators of the Emerald Ash Borer to maybe control the population that way. There's hopes for a new generation of ash trees that are resistant to the Emerald Ash Borer. So these are all reasons to keep ash on the landscape. Yeah, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you,
very much.
Tesla. Mike, any further questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Anyone participating in as public who would like to question? Hearing none, we want to thank Gail and David, of course, and as well the UVM group. This was a very notable achievement on your parts. We're very grateful for it, and no doubt there'll be some continuing reference to it as well, potentially, and hopefully some continuing involvement on your parts in the town plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we want to thank you too.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is an awesome opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time and for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again and good evening. The next agenda item is the Pro-Tem Financial Advisory Committee informational update. Don is there, and Don's going to introduce the members of this committee that are there as well. You want to take it from here, Don?
Yes, Jerry, thank you. I see that Ken Albert has joined Catherine and me, so unless anyone else is on the line here, and I can't see the full screen, but it would be we three from the committee at this point. Will be very brief in my remarks here. We've been working very hard over the last several weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks, in our 6 work plan areas. I'll cover them very briefly. Our community stakeholder outreach has continued. We have released a resident questionnaire. It's on our website and also on Friendly Porch Forum. We would encourage anybody on the line who hasn't filled out that form to do so. It's important in our work effort, and it does inform what we're doing. Survey results so far: 51 businesses have responded and 170 town residents. Now that's a great response from the community. It's statistically relevant and validating. So thank you. We have one-on-one interviews continuing, and our town website has been expanded to include a wide range of information, including postings from our committee. And I guess I see the cover page on the screen of our committee report. Lee, you want to flip to the second page? There we go. Okay, and in terms of economic impact assessment, it's important that we use as much Shelburne-centric information as possible. So we're looking at grand list data, the input from these surveys to businesses and residents, recession experience here, some state statistics, and general information from periods of economic duress over the past several decades. One thing I would mention in terms of information, there is a second round of SBA loans that have been authorized, $310 million. If people would like to take advantage of that, it's still available. PPP program, EIDL, and others, and would encourage you to reach out to 2 members of our committee who have graciously offered to assist filling out those forms, Tim Williams and Ken Albert, and I believe their contact information is on our website. In terms of financial resources, not much here has changed in terms of what we're looking at as possible opportunities. I would mention that Senate Bill 344 has been passed by the Senate. It's on to the House. It would provide Select Board some additional flexibility in various actions that it might take, including extending the property tax deadline and permitting waiving penalties for late payments. In terms of, on the next page, our financial and fiscal analysis, we have reviewed the information from that Lee and Peter have provided, and Lee's going to talk about that in detail following this presentation. So I'll let Lee cover that. Our econometric model is completed. It's in a test mode at this point. There's several hundred data lines in it. It has multiple variables that we can take a look at just about anything that might come down the road in terms of continuation of the pandemic, a rapid recovery, and anything really in between. We're taking a look at moving forward on a liquidity facility should we need one, and we'll be exploring that possibility with a number of the local banks that the town works with. In terms of the legislative front, legislation, policy, and legal issues. A lot continues in that area. In particular, there's a $500 billion bill that's being discussed to provide financial assistance directly to states and municipalities. This is at the federal level. So hopefully something will come about from that effort in Washington. And finally, we are starting drafting up certain sections of our report at this point, and are prepared to provide the committee, the select board, our report, hopefully by the second select board meeting in May. So that's the end of next month. We should have everything put together. A little caveat there, this continues to be a moving process in Washington, in Montpelier, and elsewhere. So, we're going to provide the most recent information that we have. It might change, so we'll continue to monitor events, and should anything happen that would cause a change or reprioritization of some of the things we'll be recommending in our report, we will post the select board as soon as possible. So are there questions for any of us?
Any questions for Don? The effort has been superb, Don. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We can't be more grateful for the time and energy of the committee. We certainly look forward to the final. While it's definite that our first meeting in May is going to be virtual, there's an outside chance that the second late in the month might be one that we could hold as we normally do. That would certainly benefit your presentation, but nevertheless, we look forward to it greatly and appreciate especially your effort given the changes that are occurring practically every day in not only the response to the pandemic, but the effects of it. Has anyone on the board got a question for Don?
Thank you, Jerry.
Hearing none, the next item, as Don has introduced, is one aspect of the situation that he and his committee have been examining, and that is budget adjustments that might be recommended by the town manager. And Lee, would you take it from there?
Thank you. Yeah, Peter's again worked very hard on this, and we do appreciate the effort of Don and the committee as a whole. It's been a great partnership. Quick recap of current circumstances. As you know, tonight's thought was to review where we are with this fiscal year's budget, and presumably we get past some changes there, we'll move forward and start analyzing in greater depth than we even did before next fiscal year's budget. So just as information, as you know, our third tax installment was due in mid-March. We did have a somewhat greater number of delinquencies than we did at this time last year. However, we're not yet seeing a pattern to necessarily be fearful about. A number of larger residential tax bills did not appear to be related to ability to pay, but more timing, circumstance, or simple human error given everything that's going on in the world. We have taken in some significant dollars just this week alone that will help close the gap on that. So we are behind, if you will, from where we were last year, but I'm not sure we're seeing a pattern necessarily to be concerned about yet. By way of very short story, the number of expenditures have been conservative to date, and others that can be deferred or held off and not spent in the next 2 months, the last fiscal year. So conservative estimate is we believe we can likely come in roughly $136,000 under budget by June 30 of this year. Again, tax revenue is down, but a number of expenditures are down. Town clerk's expenses have been under projected budget. In particular, the police department has done a very good job managing overtime expenses, which was clearly a matter of great concern during this last year's budget delivery. So we expect them to come in well under budget. There are some other expenses that would have been grant funded. The grants didn't come in, so we're not spending those dollars. And there are some highway department or stormwater projects that choose not to do that would otherwise have been funded by this year's budget. So in large scale summary, and you've seen this, it's been online, and this is the 1-page summary of the budget. Again, revenues being down to some extent, but some of those were grant related, so they relate to expenses we're also not going to be putting forward. Hopeful that we will end the year, round numbers, conservatively, roughly $136,000 to the good of this year. Originally, we had thought it might require a select board resolution to make these kinds of budget adjustments, but it turns out very precise nature of the language in the charter only requires a select board resolution if we are proposing to transfer monies between departments. And we're not proposing any transfers of that sort. We are simply, if you will, proposing not to spend money that had been appropriated at town meeting a year and a half ago.
Right, yeah.
The goal here is to obviously work collaboratively with all of us, but just for your questions, ideas, concerns, and hopeful blessing that we are continuing collectively to manage the budget in a prudent manner.
Thank you, Lee and Peter. That's outstanding, really. And are there questions on the parts of board members? Mike?
I did have one kind of general concern, and I wondered about this in terms of the highway and roads budget. Is there any kind of risk of deferring actions costing more later down the road? And in general, is there a concern that the sorts of services that we're not delivering or the sorts of things that are not happening are going to create more cost in the long run?
Well, always a good question, and I know Paul's on the line here, so let him speak to that. For example, one significant cost we are not proposing to defer is regular retreatment paving budget, in part because of that concern that when you start falling behind, you end up costing yourself more. So we received a significant state grant, paving grant last year, and those paving grants have a condition that you are spending your highway budget for paving as proposed. So it's not intended as a grant to backfill and save the town money. So if we were not to pave, spend the rest of the paving budget, we'd actually have to give back that $80,000 or $90,000 grant. that doesn't seem like a very good approach in our opinion.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Mary?
I guess a related, hi, it's Jamie. A related question to follow on Mike's is, how do we feel about just the current investment we're making with building and grounds and maintaining trails that are now being used more heavily within town? Just something to think about. You know, looking at a surplus here is great for the balance of the fiscal year, and I'm sure we'll be able to use it next fiscal year, but just wanted to get some initial reactions to that, how we feel about maintenance generally.
I'll be glad to look into that with Betsy, Darwin, and Kyle. Just to be clear, the purpose of this analysis, and again, great thanks to Peter for helping to prepare it, was not simply to see how much money we could not spend, but as Don Porter has pointed out several occasions, if we are fearful about next year's revenue collection, the goal was to see how much cash we could conserve and not spend this year. This is not a proposal to slash and burn every dollar and just stop spending money where we don't have to. But very good question, and I'll be glad to look into it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, do you have any questions?
Not really, just a comment to say that looking at this budget, it comes as a relief. So I hope it unfolds as anticipated.
Thanks. I agree, Lee, that I don't believe a resolution is called for. And following up Jamie's comment, I think we're doing right to first address the 2019-2020 and having a good understanding of and management and intensive management control of that. We then move to what are going to be a series of questions about 2021 yet to come, much less the further budget discussions in the fall. So I do think it's worthwhile for all of us to keep in mind there's a real thread here through 3 budget years actually before the pandemic impact plays out. And no doubt that's going to be treated in some way by Don's committee's report. But like Mary Lee, this was very comforting and reassuring to know that for the remaining weeks of this last quarter, we seem to be in very, very good shape in terms of 2019-2020. That's a lot of effort that you and Peter put into the detail, and we are greatly appreciative and thankful. Jamie?
Yeah, and I'd like to thank the department heads as well who don't spend money just because it's there.
Lee, this is Peter. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Just a couple of comments, if I could.
Please.
And thanks for touching on the high points. Again, I echo the cooperation that we've got with department heads where they haven't spent their full budget going into the last couple of months. That certainly is a good feature to have at this point. Just a couple of things. We did send out late notices for the last tax installment. And the chart that Lee had on the first page, we were at $326,000 past due for the March installment as of April 24th. Since we sent out the notices, we've gotten $71,000 of payments coming in. So that's a good sign at this point. We haven't had any requests for waiver of late fees other than the ones the board's already discussed. So we're hopeful that with that notice of reminders that the tax payment was due, that we'll collect more between now and the end of the year and the end of the fiscal year. Secondly, you've heard obviously in the news about towns having trouble making their state education payments to the state. There's a payment coming up before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. In Shelburne's case, between what we owe to the school district and to the state, the final installment, if you will, for this fiscal year is about $2.5 million. We will be able to cover that. And again, that's one of those situations where we have to pay what was billed out to the state, not necessarily what we collect for school taxes. So it can definitely be a squeeze for towns. Where one advantage is that we have completed our tax year, so all the payments have come in, less those that were delinquent. But we're in good shape to make that payment also. I think my biggest concern, and I think Don shares it as well, is what happens in July, because really we're going into our tightest time period now of cash flow, where we don't have tax revenues coming in, but we're still paying bills. We've got some debt payments coming up. So our cash flow, if you will, gets very tight between now and, say, July, when we start billing again normally. That's something I am concerned about, and we will need to watch very closely. To Don's credit, he has created a very sophisticated financial model that we can plug our assumptions into and model that. But I guess that's my biggest concern right now, is what our cash flow is going to look like in July, August, that time frame.
Thank you, Peter. Jamie, any comments?
My only comment is, it's nice to see the police savings there. I'm happy to hear that they're managing that overtime well, and the fire and highway are very substantial. So, all credit to the department heads there. Thank you.
Kate, you have a question or an observation? Jessica, are you still there? Jessica, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
No, that's all right. I was going to ask if you might want to comment on the proposal that Aaron Frank and circulated, and that has since been sent to Montpelier on deferring those tax payments to the state.
And that is the bill that I can't remember who Don spoke of, the Senate 344, and I just sent a copy of that actually to Lee to take a look at. But it does it reduces. It looks like it might even reduce the tax burden a little bit, and it does not charge. If you're late, you don't get hit with that 8% tax. And there's one other thing it does. Let me see, I was just looking at it, but there are three. It actually just passed the Senate today. So it's headed over to the House. So we haven't had a chance yet to look at it, but it sounds like we will be talking about it in our House Ways and Means Committee on Thursday, and maybe bringing it to the floor for a vote on Friday. So I do think it would be good news to the towns, but it sounds like Shelburne's in pretty good shape. You're not worried about that 8%, or are you, Lee?
Well, as Peter noted, we may well be worried about it during the next fiscal year, depending on how property tax revenues come in. So we're okay for the moment on the current payment, but that next payment next year could be a different story.
Could be the tough one, yeah. And we're just passing an adjustment bill that's going to take us through mid-July, but then we'll have to come back again and do another adjustment. And then the other piece is that it looks like some of the money the state's got in that big chunk of 1.25 billion, some of that money may be allocated to help municipalities. So, but that's really unknown still. It's got to go through the Joint Fiscal Office, and we haven't heard exactly how that's going to be. It's more for the revenue committees to talk about, but we will be listening to towns for sure. And I know the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is in there all the time and an incredible advocate for municipalities. And we just heard today that the city of Burlington is really looking at some tough cuts because they just have really gotten killed with COVID. So I know there'll be a lot more conversation. And Lee, take a look at that bill tomorrow and let me know what you think, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any other questions? Once again, Lee and Peter, this is an extraordinary effort. It is, as Mary has noted, it's very comforting to understand our present circumstance, and even if the trend on payment is not a trend, it certainly grounds the efforts of the committee, Don and his colleagues, in terms of expectations for the summer and for the next budget year. But we really appreciate the effort, and indeed happy to second your commendation of staff, whose handiwork is pretty plain here. And as Jamie noted, especially in some cases that we spent some time discussing in developing the 2021 budget. So we thank you. Are there any other questions among those participating in the public? Hearing none, thanks again. The next item is to set a date for a new public hearing on the proposed stormwater ordinance. Lee, would you like to introduce that?
Sure. Kate, I know this is a newer topic for you, but the other board members have been through several years of process on the stormwater ordinance. We've been through 2 complete iterations of it with the Stormwater Advisory Committee. You may recall the first round, we got to the hearing process, had some significant concerns raised by some major landowners. We went back to the drawing board, found ways to address those while still meeting the needs of the town and the external mandates upon us, and came forward with a new proposal that was unanimously endorsed by that Stormwater Committee. We began the hearing process, then COVID-19 came upon us, and we had to put a pause on that. Our suggestion would be that we warn a new hearing, keep the momentum going on that, get that adopted, but push the implementation date back a full year to July 2021, so that we are not imposing yet another fee upon property owners at this uncertain time.
Are there any questions, beginning with Mike?
Only that kind of related to my previous same kind of question, like unanticipated costs related to pushing it back. So does that mean, Lee, that is there a possibility we're going to bear the brunt of any extra kinds of charges? Or is it just a matter of we're just shifting the payment structure a year out?
Well, again, always a good question. For the most part, these deadlines, ultimately, we have to meet are a number of years out. It may mean at some point in the out years, we'd have to accelerate some projects, but I'm not aware of any immediate short-term consequences, other than clearly those involved in stormwater management want to get moving and get things done. But I'm not aware of any short-term consequences that would cost us more down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Mary?
Yes, thank you, Jerry. One of the concerns I have is losing momentum. So I'm glad we're having a hearing in June, and if I understand, the idea is to pass it, but make it so it's not effective for another year. And I would favor that as opposed to delaying enactment, only because for 2 reasons. One, we've, I think, put a lot of work into this, the SWAC did especially. And I know there have been significant improvements made since we sort of kicked the can down the road a little bit last year. And so I would be concerned about not moving forward. That said, I think for folks who might be a little concerned, this is an ordinance that could be amended as we learn more. This is a new approach for the town, and I think it's going to be partly a process. So once the ordinance is passed, assuming it is passed, it's not graven in granite, and we can tweak it if need be. And I think it's important for people to understand that as well. There might be a significant room for improvement. I know I've talked to Kate a little bit about some ideas that she has around that. And I just want to make sure people understand that as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Mary. For my part, I'm going to follow right on that same comment, and we're all encouraging Kate with to circulate through Lee to send her ideas to Lee, so those could be circulated in anticipation of the hearing. I had just one question, Lee, that I should have raised sooner. Now that I think about it, but I'm guessing that there's no critical intersection with should we take up one of the options to South Burlington treatment as to whether we have a utility in place or not. I'm assuming they certainly exist in the same environment, but they're parallel, if anything, and not mutually exclusive or inclusive. Is that right?
That's correct. I believe you're referring to the other analysis of whether to join in with South Burlington on wastewater treatment.
Yeah.
We already work with them on stormwater to our advantage, certainly. Like this week, they're doing sweeping, and we contract with them to do it, so we don't have to rent or buy our own street sweeper. These are indeed mutually exclusive.
So setting it forward a year is not going to interrupt that.
Correct.
Thanks. Jamie?
I agree with Mary's sentiment. I would like to keep the momentum and nail this down with this board this summer at some point, and whether it's June or a future date, fine with that. I do like the idea of a deferred implementation date, primarily to really give people like Peter and Chris on the administrative side more breathing room. I think that's a huge piece that most people don't realize is happening.
Absolutely.
And, these folks will have enough on their plate during the next couple quarters. So I think it's a smart move all around to just wait until 2021.
Thanks, Jamie. Kate? Kate, do you have a comment at all?
I'll try and get something out before I'm cut out. I look forward to the opportunity to present some ideas to you all.
Great, and we'll look forward to them as well. Is there any other discussion? Is there a motion to set the new public hearing for June 9, 2020?
So moved, Jamie.
Second,
moves.
Mary.
Mary seconds. Is there any discussion on the board? Any discussion in those participating in the meeting? Hearing none, those approving, please signify by saying aye, beginning with Mike.
Mike, aye.
Kate,
Mary?
aye.
Oops.
Jerry, aye.
Jamie, aye.
And Mary, aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Kate, aye. So it's approved unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, Lee.
Thank
The
you.
next item is a wastewater allocation for Snyder, Kwiniaska Ridge, the 3 single-family homes. Lee has provided the information for us. Is there any just questions for Lee?
I will just
If
identify.
not, is there a motion?
Sorry. In the past, there's been a
I'm sorry.
request addresses for these homes. They don't have addresses yet, but they are lots 3, 19C, and 24C.
Thank you, Lee. Hearing no other questions or discussion, is there a motion to the effect of approving?
So moved. Mary?
Mary moves.
Mike, seconds.
Mike seconds. Any discussion further? Hearing none. Those approving, please signify by saying aye, beginning with Mike.
Aye, Mike.
Aye, Mary?
Aye, Jerry.
Aye, Jamie.
Aye, Kate.
Looks like Kate's
Motion-
having some bandwidth issues.
Motion's been approved 4-0. unanimously with Kate not voting. Thank you. And the next following item is to approve a $100,000 loan for a highway department truck, which was purchased in 2019. Lee or Peter, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you. Peter, could you give the capsule discussion on this?
Sure.
one?
Yep. This is actually a highway truck that was purchased back in the beginning of this fiscal year, around July. The truck came, but as far as getting the dump body, snowplow, and all of that on it, apparently there's a large backlog for that. So that actually wasn't completed until March of this year. And we normally, when we're financing this, would finance the whole truck and not do it in pieces. So this was budgeted for in this budget year. And the request is to have a loan with Union Bank, $100,000. It's an fixed interest rate of 1.95% for 5 years to finance this truck. So again, this is something that was budgeted. We'd hoped to have it before this coming winter, but again, due to delays in equipment installation, we're wrapping it up now. And so basically, we had paid for this out of working cash and now moving it into a loan payment.
Is there any discussion or question for Peter? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Actually, I was just looking for clarification. This is from the previous year budget?
It's this year, but it was anticipated to be purchased like in July and not later in the year. So it's in the 2019-20 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to the effect of approving the loan?
So moved.
Mary?
Mary moved.
Second?
Kate seconds. Those approving, please signify by saying aye, beginning with Mike.
Mike, aye.
Mary, aye.
Kate,
Jerry,
aye.
aye.
Jamie, aye.
Jamie?
Jamie, aye.
Thank you very much. Approved unanimously. I'm tempted to say that's all, folks, but I don't sound like a rabbit, so we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second, Mary.
Jamie moves, Mary seconds. Any further discussion? Thank you, everybody, for your participation and interest. We'll hope to see you soon up close. Meanwhile, stay home, keep safe, and those approving, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mary, Mike.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Mary.
Kate, Mike.
Jamie, aye.
It sounds like Jamie and I say aye as well. Good night,
Aye.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.